All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar focused on the 6 pillars of responsive product portfolio management. A few housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, so we'll share the recording and slides with you after we finish. All participants are on mute. However, there's a chat box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So please feel free to submit questions throughout the course of the webinar, and we'll save time at the end to answer all of them. Okay, so I am honored to introduce our speaker today, Becky Flint. She is the CEO and founder of Dragonboat. She has an incredible background building the product portfolio functions for PayPal, BigCommerce, and Shutterfly, to name a few, and has led over 10 million hours of product roadmap through her career. She founded Dragonboat in 2018 because she was tired of working out of spreadsheets, a problem many of you surely face, and across dispersed and decentralized tools. So she wanted to build a product that created a central platform with an end-to-end use case that helped connect customer needs, business goals, and product strategies before and after Scrum to help companies achieve the maximum portfolio yield. She's not only a strong operator and founder, she's also a thought leader in the responsive product portfolio framework and has advised some of the largest companies in the world on how to think about product and portfolio in the digital world. With that, I'll pass it to Becky to kick things off and walk us through the framework and the key pillars to responsive product portfolio management. So welcome, Becky.
Thank you so much, Margie. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. So before I get started, I want to just put a little bit of framework of the terms that we use every day. And as we build product, we work in various functions. And in here, you can see there's a general workflow of how we build product. And notice these are actual the functions, not necessarily job title. You could be doing multiple things as a one person, aka wearing multiple hats. So obviously on the product side, we start with ideas, we prioritize them, and then product and the program management started coming together as a planning how we are going to build it. And then obviously we'll go through the execution with the teams, the agiles and scrums and the kanbans and so on. And part of the workflow is also provide reporting. So as the product and program management coming to work hand in hand together, what is the next piece? The next piece actually combining them and add on one more piece of critical elements, which is the allocation. As you can see, allocation tie different product and program and the roadmaps together. So this is called the product portfolio management. It's being practiced over the years. Now, the new thing as a digital and agile and fast changing world has introduced a new need. And this is called the responsive product portfolio management. It's all the elements that we saw earlier goes in a continuous evolving phase. And there's a connector that connects the product program management with the rest of the business. That's called it could be called objectives and business outcomes, the business goals. And this is called a responsive product portfolio management. And this is how we tie different pieces of the product, the customer, and so forth into a framework. Now, in short, you can almost think this way. Responsive product portfolio management is product management plus program management. You tie them together and you times the multiple areas, could be multiple areas of the organization, could be even multiple areas of a single product team. So then the art and the science of responsive product portfolio management is picking the right mix of product investment so that will best achieve a total outcome for your portfolio, just like a financial portfolio. So why we have to look at this? Portfolio management has always existed. It's something layer on top and part of the workflow with the team's work, right? Remember, the execution is a part of the overall picture. In the past, it was waterfall activities. You have a centralized top-down control type of the portfolio management. today the world has changed. The teams are moving fast. The world is moving fast. We need interaction between top and the down, between the planning and ideation and also execution. So this multi-dimensional, multi-interaction between teams and strategy and the customer really leading us to the framework that help companies, the leading companies like PayPal, leading companies like Amazon's and Spotify's. They use this framework to tie the moving pieces together and then move the organization forward. So now this is how we operate. It's no longer a one-way direction from executives to teams. And the interaction happens in here really tie a different time horizon. You can see executives looking at a longer time horizon, focusing on a quarter. And then the managers, the directors, and a lot of the audience you're here is looking at the quarters and how is the focus onto the month and so on and so forth, tied to your team's execution. And how this framework would tie with the platform, tie your objectives into the stories and tasks with intermediary activity. Those are the initiatives, the projects, and our features that your organization can move with a faster adjustment. And that is a responsive way of building product holistically as a portfolio. Now, is this something new? Is this a standalone? Is this something different? It's a way tying the existing framework together. It works with agile execution. It could be Scrum, could be Kanban. We tie that. It could be even, traditional waterfall, because different type of a team execution is warranted in different culture, the environment, a type of the work. Now, it also tied to scale agile framework, because at the higher level, thinking about it, is that your portfolio has its cadence, that it's a rhythm that we tie your quarterly or rolling or PI planning into your biweekly that ties into Scrum. And then you can do the check-ins based on the outcome of your portfolio. You can set and modify your next areas of focus. So in a little bit, we'll show you how the connector become the beginning and the end of the cycle of responsive portfolio management. That's closing the loop. And then, obviously, because we're in the environment, things change. So we can always manage trade-offs, manage requests, and understanding what could means to existing focus and how we may adjust it. So I'm going to fly through this fairly quickly. If you have questions, please do type them into the chat box so we can address them at the end of this presentation. Now, I'm going to dive a little deeper into the 6 pillars plus the connector we gone through about responsive product portfolio management. So the first one we started as the very unique elements of a portfolio is allocation. Similar to financial portfolio, if you're running a financial portfolio, you probably have heard of that the proper allocation of the portfolio is the single most important thing of the overall outcome of the portfolio, more important than individual investment you choose. It's similar to product portfolio in that how you allocate your product investment, what feature to work on, what project to work on, where you put your resources across your portfolio is super important. Now, it is also a multi-dimensional portfolio, meaning how you look at things is more than just one way of prioritization. It could be customer dimension, it could be your strategic dimension, it could be your time horizon dimension. And that is how we build it and think about portfolio management in the context of a modern, agile, responsive organization. So I'm going to just do a quick snapshot of this. So this is a Dragonboat. And then we built a Dragonboat completely based on the framework, best practice as learnings on how to run a product portfolio across different sizes of the companies, different level of maturity, that would truly allow the company to become agile at the scale. So Here you can see we have objectives. We have key results or second level objectives. Then you have allocation. This example show only the higher level allocation. And this allocation is a way to, from your company, a business, a portfolio perspective, say where we need to focus on. Not only just having the objectives and we need to work on, we need to see how we're going to put our actual effort around it. So this allocation will give us ability to look at the rest of the workflow. Now, the second part is to talk about the inputs. Now we know where we want to allocate our product investment and the resource investment. Now we need to evaluate what's coming in. It is very important, especially in today's world, is that we take a broader view of what the ideas, requests, the concept from different parts of the organization. If you're running a transformation portfolio, or from different parts of your customers and functions, if you're building product, so that your customer success team, your marketing team, your sales team, your customers, support team can provide their inputs to your portfolio. And these inputs are not marching orders. These inputs need to become the inspiration and context so that you can use here to correlate and come up with the product ideas. They're not one-to-one. You could have one request breaking down to multiple product features, and one product feature could be supporting multiple requests. So this is the example of the request module in Dragonboat. You can see how it's correlated to the customers. We can filter it down by customer, or we can move things away to see the whole request. And a request could tie to multiple product portfolios or projects, and how you use it in your terminology, and into the ideas, so that you can see how they being worked on, being prioritized. And these information also carry into the product ideas themselves or project themselves. So you know you are working for, let's say, this set of the customers, and it goes down to the area of the business vertical or business segment of your product. So now we talk about the allocation by various dimensions, and we talk a little bit of how we look at the request coming in. That will be something that will help us to have more insights, in addition to other insights to create our portfolio funnel. The next one, obviously, is prioritization. We never run out of things to do, right? So when you have lots of ideas, lots of requests come in, the product leaders will have to prioritize. So the unique part of taking a portfolio approach is that we will take an allocation approach first. Take the allocation as your guidepost. You already decided where you're going to allocate it in different dimensions of portfolio. The example we saw is we allocated by the objective. We at the same time, we may also allocate it by the type of the product we build, for example. So allocation become your guidepost. You can compare apples to apples within the same bucket of type of dimensions of your portfolio. And from that, you can then, using quantitative or qualitative way to prioritize. And traditionally companies, more traditional companies use ROI. And a common model used by product teams are RICE. And in Dragonboat, we have additional proprietary measure, which is called the metric over available resources. It really is tying your benefit towards the goals and the resource needs to support those initiatives and ideas into a more direct, comparable effort, so that you can do a prioritization at the higher level based on the allocation. And then this later on can be tied from a bottoms up estimation. So we know, are we on track? Are we off in terms of our estimation, so that we can make adjustment along the way. So here is an example of your prioritization. So you can see that we have the right scoring as one example. You could use the metric over available resources to see how your product features being prioritized across the board. And another example is that you can see how this is directly mapped to your objective, so that you can see how your product are mapped to the objective, our product, and so forth, to give you the idea of how it may come along. And with this, the allocation coming into play, such as this. So you can see how your product portfolio is tied to the allocation. Once you started to use as a guidepost, then you can start here to look at your prioritization within each one of them. So now we talk about the prioritization and allocation. The next step is the planning. Think about our workflow from ideation, prioritization into the planning phase. The planning phase is a somewhat quote unquote a handoff or collaboration. It's both a handoff and a collaboration between the product and the program management. Now, obviously, program management could also tie to the engineering if you're in a tech environment. So the release planning, the roadmap became move on to the release planning, so that you can at this point to start looking at, what your time frame could look like, you could look at things as a precise or chunked as a quarterly roadmap or quarterly product increment, or you can look at a fuzzy timeline, such as I'm going to have this month, next month, and this quarter, or this quarter, next quarter, H2. So that give you a flexible way to look at your product as well as the release, and not having to plan everything out. As a part of the release planning or product increment planning, you also add into the elements of execution. What are the estimates? What are the resourcing needs if we need to think about the resourcing? And what are the dependencies? As most of the team faces today, that product is not built by one team. It's not built by one engineer. So when you account for these kind of dependencies, the multiple needs, and Dragonboat, as well as the responsive portfolio, help you to look at them from the lens of prioritization, as well as the time dimension of it. So here is where we're looking at. It's very similar to what we looked at earlier, but you can see here is we start to track, have a high level estimate on the teams, the skills you need, and the total effort you need, and you have a general idea of whether we have enough resources to working on these features. I think there was a interesting quote saying, "Show me your resource allocation, I will tell you what your strategies are," because you can't put strategy on a vacuum. And this is something where you really tie pieces together. So we talked about allocation earlier. I'm just going to spend a little bit more time on here. So when we look at this, what does this tell me? So what this one tell you is this: you have a target allocation, and this is your current allocation on where you spend your product and resources on. And you can also see the health, which is we will talk about more later, is how you close the loop. The health of this objective is green, and you are over allocating to this objective. See the challenge? The challenge is that probably this objective is green because we allocated a lot of resources working on it, let's say last quarter or last period, and it is green. But if we don't tie our objectives and outcomes to our future prioritization, then we could continue down the momentum and still building the product, helping with this objective where it's already on track. At the same time, this objective is being under allocated and is not on track. This objective is at risk. So as you can see this, you will say, well, we should probably move some of the projects and product from this category to support more of this objective that is not on track. So you can see how when you start to have a responsive portfolio, you actually can tie these pieces together to create a release roadmap, a product roadmap. And that's not only just the directional where we wanted to go, it's something that will drive results and tie what we have, which is our team's resources. That's our investment to deliver to the outcome we need. So that's the pillar 4 about the allocation planning. Now, obviously, that's execution. Now, the focus of Dragonboat on execution is to really connect the product and the portfolio piece into the team tools so that the team can work the way they want it. They could use Jira, they can use Asana, they can use any tools to their preference. We don't dictate what they do. And then we also don't dictate how the team going to practice their execution. It could be Kanban, could be Agile, could be traditional, could be other ways. And the idea is that we provide the guide rail to the team so they know where to focus on. And then we will just get the visibility on what's happening from the team tool into Dragonboat through a very seamless, robust integration. And not only that, we can predict the progress, the progress team already made. So then we can tell, are we going to make the previously targeted time or not? The goal is so that we can spot challenges, risk, issues early so that we can mitigate it. Maybe you will say, wait, are we waterfall? Do we have a timeline? And try to make that timeline? I would say not necessarily. The reason is this: when you put a portfolio together, everything is based on assumption. The product outcome is assumed. We think if we build this, we'll get this outcome. The resources we need to build a product is also assumption. Every step away, we need to validate our assumption. Is it still true or not? And this prediction, it's a rolling prediction on where we are. As soon as we start to see our previous assumption of how much resource and time this product feature need, maybe at risk, we can make a portfolio level adjustment decision because you're not just changing that product feature. Everything else in your portfolio is moving, right? You would have to, if you take longer, it needs to take longer, it needs to take more resource because that's still the most important things to do. Then we probably move some other resources or delay some other product features for this portfolio. If in the end you say, look, it's taking a long time, but we can de-scope it so that we're not going to impact other things on our portfolio, you can make that choice as well. The goal is to have an informed decision on, should we continue? Should we change? Should we change others? So that's a managed execution elements of it. And as you can see right now, we group things into the way that you can see different product areas, various product features. We give you alert because it shows based on the progress in, for example, Jira. In this instance, you can see the alert saying we're behind because of such. And we can share this information. Not only you as the product managers or program managers managing your product roadmaps or portfolio, you can also share this information with your stakeholder at the appropriate data, different format. So in this case, it's probably good to share with your head of the product, your engineering team. These are different product areas we're working on, where we are, and so forth. And I could also share something, say, oh, I want to share with our executive teams on here, we don't group things by product anymore. We actually look at from the lens, portfolio dimension of objective. If we share with executive teams, we're really talking about what kind of features we're working on and how they benefit our business goals and which product areas this is from and the health of it, so on and so forth. So this has become something where literally you come in here, you can get a bird's eye view on what's going on, being alert on problems and issues, and then also easily share this with your various stakeholders in a very automated way. So managed execution is important because that would really have a ripple effect. Anything fails. So as a part of the portfolio, product portfolio, and this is the critical elements as well. Now we're talking about the last bit of the pillar of responsive product portfolio, which is a stakeholder reports. Now, all of us operate with teams, with various cross-functional teams, have different stakeholders. Keeping them informed is also close the loop. Remember, in the early phase of the product portfolio, we have the stakeholder request. They will be informed and provide inputs to the portfolio itself. Now, we at the almost the end stage of the portfolio is how to keep them informed in a way so that changes can come into the portfolio as inputs and ideas and a request, and then the output of the team on what we're building, where we are, what is at risk, what we are changing, so that they can be on our side, not only understanding what we're building, they can also make them do a better job in terms of how they can plan go-to-market. Marketing can plan go-to-market better. Support a customer success can plan how they support the customers to provide them a valuable insight better. And obviously, sales team can have better ideas of how to communicate it to the customers, understanding what's coming and what's leaving. So stakeholder report is the key elements of the stakeholder management. That the other part of the report, not necessarily for immediate cross-functional stakeholder, is for the portfolio owner, yourself, product manager, director, VP of the product, all wants to know how we're doing. Do we plan well? Do we prioritize well? Is our outcome matched to our understanding? What kind of changes we've made over the course of last 3 months or 2 quarters? And these are the insights for us, right? Just like if you receive your investment statement, it will show you how you perform, so that you can learn and adjust as well. And these other reports that are coming out, as one is definitely should think about it when you're running a portfolio, and 2 is Dragonboat help you to automate that. You will automate in the way. I'm slightly laughing inside of myself right now, because I know this looks really simple, but I spend so much time to create all these reports for different stakeholders. And literally my Sunday afternoon in the last maybe 20 years of my career has been writing status updates to different stakeholders. And this is one of the example of stakeholder reports. We use it to share with executive teams. It's based on the OKR and the time. You can see which team is working on what. But sales team, maybe they don't want to look at something that's not directly relevant to them, right? Sales team or success team, they want to say, these are my customers. I want to know what we're building for them, and then what's going to be available. Are we on track? And so here you can see that's for your customers that tie back to the request as well. They can get a report. They also tie back from the request they sent earlier. So you can see the features that cover multiple customers actually across in multiple swim lanes. So you can look at the lens for your customers, for your customer focused group. So now, once we have gone through the 6 elements of a responsive product portfolio, from the allocation to ideas, prioritization, planning, execution, reporting. So what is next? The next one is the connector. That's the responsive part of the product portfolio, which is the closed loop. How often we would say, yeah, we prioritized, we built this product, it's coming on the market, and let's move on. It's not going to help us anymore. We have to figure out, did it really move the needle? Did we meet the target we set? So the progress of the goals need to be tracked to close the loop, and also as the input for the next period of prioritization. And that's how we build it in Dragonboat as well. So when you come here, same focus, a different view on your OKRs. It show you that your outcome progress, this is the metrics you are driving, it will provide you the outcomes to say, if your growth from the core market, you have a metric of, market penetration, number of accounts, and so forth, that is right now at the 60%, and you believe that's green. And you can see your activity progress. These are 2 completely different elements, so that the outcome progress, will be something you use to decide the next phase of prioritization. Activity progress is something you use to see, are we on track to execute the plan that we lay out based on the previous period of the focus. So here you go. These are the 7 pieces of responsive product portfolio management. The connector is the OKR or goals or metrics, however your company's team you term, that the 6 pillars will start and end with the this OKR elements, so that now not only we'll look at the pieces of the workflow or activities, we're also looking at the benefit of that. So you can see that the responsive product portfolio management helps you to deliver customer delight. There's customer elements of every product organization or every organization. It will help you to accelerate business results because these two are actually different dimensions, and the responsive portfolio tie these pieces together. And then there's a stakeholder management elements of that as well. Now, stakeholder management is one of the most challenging aspect of almost all the product and program leaders. And the reason is because you have so many inputs, so many different ideas, so many different priorities. How do you tie them together? First, achieve a goal alignment, then achieve agreed on allocation. From there, all the conversation will be so much easier. And with the goal alignment, with the right allocation, clear prioritization based on the business results and the customer delight, you can empower your team, regardless they're engineers and designers and sales teams and support team. Everyone wants to do the best of their job. They want to make sure they can deliver customer delight. They can deliver and accelerate business results. And that's how you group them together, by giving this everything in one place to know why we're working on what we're working on, how it matters, what results we have achieved. As you do all of them with a tool that not only make it easier to keep track on everything, managing all these moving pieces, so that your impact is so much more than you would bury yourself in spreadsheets, in PowerPoints, in meetings, in trying to not necessarily argue, but others are often argue with you, why A versus B, why not this, why not that. Here you put all your decision making, quote unquote, on paper. So when people see that, they realize that you are making the best decision for the company, given the constraint, given the goal, so that you bring everyone on board and then you make yourself a much more valuable contributor to the company, and it helps you to grow your career. So I will just summarize this in a quick quote that one of our customer, a good friend of us now, is said, when you give good people a great tool, amazing things will happen. And I think she totally summarized what this is about. We're here is to provide a tool and a platform to product managers, program managers, technology leaders, transformation leaders, all of you who are actually have to do hands-on work and manage all these moving pieces. We will provide the tools and systems to help you to be successful. So with that said, I'm going to hand this over to Baji, and we have pretty good amount of time to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Becky. So I'll give everyone a couple minutes to submit questions through the chat feature. I did want to share some remaining resources we have available through the January Jumpstart campaign. So next week, we're providing functional demos where Becky will actually dive deeper into the Dragonboat platform and show the use case, the features, and the functionality that map back to each functional area that most commonly uses the solution. So if you're in transformation, IT, product management, and you want to know more about how this concept can be applied to your specific needs, I encourage you to join next week. They'll be open for conversation throughout, so people can jump in and ask questions, and Becky will really walk through what's happening today, what's happening in 2021, how the ecosystem is shifting, and how these functional areas can kind of get ahead of it to put the systems in place for efficiency and effectiveness. And then the week after, we're doing one-to-one consultation with Becky. So taking it a step further to say, okay, how is your specific company set up? What framework are you using? And how could Responsive PPM fit into that framework so that you have the least change required internally? So I encourage you to go to the January Jumpstart campaign, which I'll include in the follow-up email with the recording, and register for some of that additional content. Okay, so we're getting some great questions in. Becky, the first one I'll start with is just around road mapping. So this question is, I'm seeing a lot of tools pop up for road mapping. How specifically is Dragonboat different?
Yeah, excellent question. So I want to actually just touch upon a little bit of the roadmap versus responsive portfolio management. A roadmap could be viewed basically a slice of the overall picture. So if you're a product manager, you have a roadmap to your engineering team. You could also have a roadmap, for example, to your customers. You have a roadmap, for example, to your executive teams. So you can see these are different dimensions of roadmap need to coming together. Now, interestingly, when you're product manager, still using the same example, you typically working with a Scrum team or engineering team that's quote unquote yours. And believe it or not, they also have a roadmap, and that's different from yours. Why? First of all, they will take most of the requests coming from a product manager. As they're planning their execution, they found out that other product managers could come to them to add additional things onto their roadmap. Then you could start to have tech roadmap, even if you only have one product team, so that your engineering's execution roadmap is not necessarily exactly as the product roadmap. Therefore, even if you're just one product manager, having one Scrum team, you still have to take a portfolio approach. That means you have the different inputs, different dimensions. There is a product hour facing, sort of the prioritized list to be done. And then there is the execution focused with the resource release and timeline associated roadmap. So with that differences in terms of what roadmap is, which is a slice of a product portfolio, therefore the product portfolio management is much broader and involve multiple roadmaps, multiple dimension of the roadmaps, and allocation and tying the results as a part of that, the platform that's in Dragonboat that's not covered in the roadmap space.
So here's a question that's a good follow-up to that. I am a product manager and we don't currently have a portfolio level focus at my company. How would you recommend I go about spearheading the change internally?
Excellent question. I think there is a pretty, there's a stigma in some ways to think about. We're a small team, we have one product, we don't have a portfolio. And that context is very, it's a little bit of, it's a more older time. We can almost using this example as a financial portfolio, regardless of how the size of your portfolio, right? You're still running a portfolio. You do have to allocate towards a different dimension of things. You have customer needs, you have your product vision, you have your business goals to drive. So even if you're a small product manager, you have to prioritize on your various inputs. How do you prioritize? You do have to take a portfolio approach, right? Define your goals, define your allocation, and use that to talk to your stakeholders to actually prioritize with a guidepost that's built to best achieve the outcomes for all what you have in control, right? Your resources, your teams, and so on and so forth. So you can almost think that everyone is managing a mini portfolio, and then your team is to manage a portfolio, and so on and so forth. So this concept of prioritization and dimension and allocation are the portfolio management. Once you start taking that step forward, it's much easier to align your various stakeholders and have a fair, clear prioritization strategy that's explainable.
Okay, so the next question is back to the overall responsive framework. So does the responsive framework work within existing frameworks like SAFe?
Yeah, excellent question. So in the earlier slide, we kind of touched upon that a little bit on how the responsive framework working with existing framework. So SAFe is one way to drive scale agile practice. And similarly, you can almost use the analogy of Kanban versus Scrum. So SAFe provide the cadences and practices on how various pieces moving together. Now, responsive product portfolio management complement that. You can use a similar cadences. You can use the similar terminologies. It's just how we prioritize. Now, think about portfolio management and the product portfolio management. A lot is about how we prioritize, how we plan. And then the SAFe is like what, it's almost like the what of you do each of the steps.
Perfect. Okay. And then I think this one's similar in that vein of, is this a replacement for Jira or a complementary tool?
Yeah, excellent question. It's definitely a complementary tool. And I want to go back to something where I experienced really well is that, very talking about the people, function, and tools. Every function needs a core tool to make their job easier. Because along down the time, you can use a spreadsheet to do everything. Yeah, sure, you can, but it's taking too much time. It doesn't have building best practices. It's very hard to scale and extend to others. So when you think about Jira's and team tools, they are for the team. They build for the iteration, for the change, for the Agiles and Scrum, and they're built in the framework that in the portfolio view, we call that the sand, right? So if you think about the portfolio, it's full of things big in size, like boulders and rocks. And then you have pebble, which is smaller in effort. And then you go to sand. So Jira is really something for the team, and Dragonboat is integrated with the Jira so that the team will use the tools they love. And then where you have a different tool as a product leaders to focus on the elements relevant to you, the noises that make sense to be prioritized and allocated before we go down to execution. So very complementary, just like how product leaders are working with their team, different tools, different focus, and different cadences.
Perfect. Okay, so that's all. Oh, we just had one more question come through. Do you have any reading you can recommend that can help me understand OKRs, what they are and how to use them?
Excellent question. So we in our follow-up email, we probably can add a little bit more content to it. The key thing is this, where OKR is a goal setting and a measurement process. It's adopted the adoption and the way you use it varies by the company, by the need. In particular, it's very unique for product organization. And that's why a plan out of the box OKR tool, typically you see people will say, my objective is to drive revenue or drive engagement, and then key result is to deliver ABCD. And you clearly can see deliver ABCD does not really measure to your goal, right? And the reason is because there's no clear way to tie the outcome to your product in the instant. There's a delayed factor. That's why as we implement OKR for teams, we actually use OKR more of goals, and then you will have to use the next phase for a delayed effect on did it really cause the effect that you target to. So we do have a couple of blog articles and recommended readings that we can attach in our follow-up email.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's it for the questions. Thank you again, Becky. That was an incredible session, and thanks to everybody who joined. We hope to see you in some of the follow-up sessions over the next couple weeks. I will be sending a follow-up email with the recording with some more information on OKRs. And if you have any other questions, respond to the email. Ask me anything. We're here as a resource for you as you're developing the framework and implementing it within your organization going forward. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.